Hello and welcome everyone to this meeting. I'm gonna wait a moment to give everyone the chance to join. I'll be back with you in a second. All right. Hello and welcome everyone to the joint webinar of Briink and Forvis Mazars with the title CDP 2026 in Practice, Combining AI Efficiency with Expert Judgment. My name is Finn Steinmann. I'm a senior manager at Forvis Mazars Germany in the service line sustainability, and I'm an expert in ESG ratings and sustainable finance. And I'm here today with Thomas.
Yes, and thank you for everybody for joining today. I'm Thomas. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Briink. We are an AI technology company headquartered in Berlin, in Germany, and we specifically focus on building AI solutions for ESG, sustainability, and climate workflows. And we really specialize in sort of identifying areas where ESG and sustainability teams struggle with a lot of sort of recurring manual workflows and really sort of bring new technology to bear. And in particular, we've been focusing a lot on CDP over the last year and really keen to dive into that today.
Thank you. That's exactly what we're going to do. But first, let me allow myself to introduce Forvis Mazars. Forvis Mazars is a global auditing and advisory firm, which is top 10 globally, and especially strong in the sustainability sphere, where we have more than 400 experts globally in almost 60 countries and have quite a lot of experience with more than 20 years. And as many in our spheres have probably the same issue right now, AI is an issue that is on our mind. We at Forvis Mazars see AI definitely as a interesting challenger to our day-to-day work and our also value generation, but we see it mainly as an assistant because it obviously makes us work more efficient, but also allows us to level up our knowledge, which is the main thing we thrive from and where we generate our value from. And there it allows us to use more data, make better benchmarks, and with human in the loop, also ensuring reduced error rates and to scale the ideas and solution that we have more easily. And while doing that, bringing that over for our clients as well to generate cost savings for them and time gains for thinking about those critical decisions and really generating a better, broader, reliable basis for decision making. Additionally, we advise on seeing AI as a stakeholder because of the way everyone is nowadays looking through data and especially in sustainability, which is more of a qualitative landscape. Data and information are key to go through it. There are a lot of them. And thinking about how AI ciphers through sustainability data is quite important. And so we always try to see that as a further stakeholder. So we are quite active in thinking about how to integrate AI. And this is also why we came across Briink, because from our perspective as sustainability advisors, Briink had quite an appealing case because they have an AI that is specialized in ESG, so really understands what all the terminologies and cases are about. But it also, with its old setup, I'm sure Thomas is going to dive into a little bit deeper later, gives us the possibility to repeat AI answers and questions that we have, limit that to documents we predefine, and also understand where the answers come from, see them in a very clear referencing, and we see in that way, or it makes it easier for us to track if there are errors and to identify hallucinations, which luckily there are and Briink a bit fewer of them, or quite a bit fewer of them. And this made us, or at least me, think that it would be really handy to use in a setting where we usually have a lot of, well, let's say monkey work, and where you work anyways with a questionnaire. So basically with CDP, because right now in the political sphere and with the economic situation, we see clients everywhere asking themselves, okay, I have limited resources, I have maybe budget cuts, and I still have nonetheless, or even more, the pressure to show what value sustainability brings to the table. Why should I still respond to CDP, which is such a big questionnaire, which is so complex, and which takes quite a lot of time and budget, either time or money from me. So why should I still engage with it? Let me try to give you a couple of answers here before diving into the elephant in the room. First of all, CDP does a lot of work for you. The changes they do, they often do in order to align with all the different frameworks and legislations that are out there. CDP makes sure that they're aligned with ESRS, IFRS, TNFD, TCFD, you name it. And they're keeping track with developments that are happening throughout the world, either scientific or politically. And they are developing their process, which on the other hand would have to be done by oneself. The other thing is it's used by a lot of stakeholders. Last year, more than 22,000 companies disclosed data via CDP, and much more stakeholders used it. So usually big buyers, investors, and proxies such as ESG ratings are using that data to build that into their different analysis or decision-making processes. One thing to highlight here are that more than 270 major buyers use the CDP supply chain program, where they ask close to 50,000 companies to disclose. Because CDP carbon disclosure is under political pressure somewhere in some places in the world, it's quite handy to use CDP, or many companies will opt to use CDP to try to get that data anyway. And all of that kind of like ciphers over to that thing to make sure in an AI age to remember to ensure that you have the control over the single source of truth about your data. CDP is the biggest carbon disclosure data bank. So every serious AI or every serious entity that wants to make an effort surrounding carbon disclosure data will use CDP. They will do that because it's so big, but also because the data there has a certain quality, because the companies have provided them this themselves and have ensured that the quality is there. So you minimize the risk that an AI in a decision-making process might hallucinate your data, because if you make sure that the number one delivery place for carbon data has your data, then your bases are covered there. And last but not least, it's a meaningful accomplishment to work with it. Everyone knows CDP is notorious for being a chunk of work. It's complex, it's big, but that also means that working through it shows that you have dedication, and achieving a B or an A is really seen as quite an achievement throughout the different stakeholders. But we're still at the fact that it's a lot of work. So, Thomas, how can we work through that with Briink?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think maybe to start off with, I think one thing that we recognized as a company about 5 years ago was that increasingly there was a ton of new work coming down for ESG teams, right? Coming from regulations, coming from rating providers, coming from standard bodies, and that it would be increasingly complex and burdensome for a lot of teams to be able to do a lot of this work and to be able to do this work at scale and with a high level of precision, trust, and accuracy. And I think that's, of course, now been accelerated, right? I think with a lot of the sort of political changes in the market, you now have smaller teams that have to do still the same amount of work and really are trying to figure out, where to focus. And I think what Briink really focuses on is how do we actually take a lot of the advancements that are happening within AI and really bring that to bear to the ESG and sustainability workforce, right? Because I think one thing that we know and one thing that's pretty clear is that AI solutions are becoming more and more powerful, but also that a lot of people have had experiences using ChatGPT, using Copilot, and seeing that actually I can't always use this so well within my sustainability or ESG team because sometimes the models, just come up with completely false answers, or they come up with errors, or they come up with hallucinations, or they don't really understand my business so well. And as a result, a lot of teams, they want to adopt AI, they see the value of adopting AI, but they also struggle to see, can I really use this within my sustainability team, right? And I think that's really where Briink comes in, right? So where we really come in is we take all the advancements that are happening in the AI space, but we really tailor it specifically to the ESG and broader sustainability space, right? We really kind of bring in that sort of that domain speciality to make sure that teams can actually use it and that they can also use it for very complex workflows, right? I think workflows around ESRS and of course the topic of today, CDP, right? I think as Finn was mentioning, CDP has built an amazing brand, an amazing business over the last 25 years, but the questionnaire is complex, right? And this is also something that the wider market has been saying for years now, right? We see the value, but it takes us a lot of time and effort to submit data to CDP. And CDP also recognizes this. Part of the reason why they chose us to be their AI partner is because they also recognize that companies, need to be able to have an easier time to submit the data that is so critical to drive the climate transition. And that's really where Briink comes in. I think if you move on to the next slide, Finn, where we specifically focus on is we really take sort of core AI systems and models, right? We work with both some of the big known foundation models, but we also work with some of our own. We build our own models, and then we build domain specificity into the underlying architectures of those models, right? So we take, for example, things like the ESRS standards, we take the CDP framework and all of the guidance and respective scoring methodology. We look at things like GRI, PRI, and so on, and we really embed the models with the understanding of this domain specifically. And then we build tools around that help companies and disclosures with a number of key recurring workflows. Things like having to answer a bunch of different questionnaires or frameworks on an annual basis, right? I think as probably a lot of people are very familiar with, it's not just CDP out there. There's EcoVadis, there's S&P, there's MSCI. There's a whole range of different frameworks that companies are looking at, as well as, of course, all the sort of custom questionnaires that you might be getting within your supply chain from your customers, and having to answer recurring questionnaires with the same underlying data over and over and over again is something where AI can really play a key role. And those are the types of solutions we build. AI solutions that help you be able to answer those questionnaires, fill in those frameworks much more easily. And we also build additional features around that help within supply chain screening, and then also downstream solutions to do with, for example, benchmarking or scoring. And then we work directly with large companies. We work with large financial institutions, and we also work with CDP directly to kind of bring a lot of this value directly to the front lines, and to really make sure that companies can really start to accelerate a lot of the work that is critically needed within this industry. I think one of our core technology solutions, I think the one that's also the backbone of how we help companies with CDP is an AI solution that helps organizations be able to basically take an underlying set of data, right? Documents, take your annual report, sustainability report, your policies, your human rights statements, your supplier codes of conduct, and so on, whatever you have, and use that to automatically be able to answer with very high precision questionnaires, right? Whether that's a CDP questionnaire, whether that's a questionnaire that comes from one of your customers. And really, we focus around making sure that the models provide answers to those questions that are grounded in your data, but also provide answers that are very, very highly accurate and are also backed up by very tailored source references. If we go forward a bit, we can look at how Briink really works under the hood. Is one, we really focus around collecting or helping you sort of take your unstructured data, meaning your documents, your policies, your spreadsheets, anything that has your underlying ESG or sustainability data in it. And then we have built systems and we use AI models to be able to structure that data, right? So to be able to go through all that documentation and see, okay, if somebody asks me a question like, what are my scope 1 emissions? If that information has been disclosed in anywhere in your documents, we will find it. We will provide you with the answer, and we'll also provide you with an audit trail for where that answer came from. Another area where we've been investing a lot of time is also more on the non-AI side of things, right? I think one thing we've also learned is it's about using AI to drive efficiencies, but a lot of times, especially for example with CDP, for example, it's also about collaborating effectively within a larger organization, right? You'll typically have an ESG team, an ESG ratings team, perhaps of a few people, but then you have a wider base of 40 or 50 contributors, maybe also working with your consultants and your audit partners to be able to actually do this in a collaborative way. And that's another area where Briink really excels is not just on the AI side, but also on the collaboration and project management side of things. And ultimately, I think what's also really exciting and where Finn will also be focusing a bit more on later is we can also provide real value in terms of also helping you, for example, with things like pre-scoring or gap analysis, right? Helping you figure out before you submit, if I submit my data in the following structure, in this following format, what kind of scores can I actually expect to get? And really help you kind of figure out how to best prepare your data in the right way, shape, and form to get the best possible outcome. I think maybe just, yeah, I think I just wanted to touch on a couple of words on why Briink specifically exists in the market, right? And I think we touched on it a little bit already, but I think AI systems and what we typically call like generic AI systems are very good at a lot of generic work, right? I mean, everybody probably on this call today has used AI systems, has used ChatGPT, has used Claude for all kinds of work all the time. I mean, I'm the same. I use AI tools all the time in my day-to-day, but I don't use it when it comes to very specialized domain-specific tasks. The same way that I don't use ChatGPT to do my sort of legal or contracting work. I also wouldn't use it to do a sort of specialized ESG work, right? Because I think ultimately, the key part of building a really robust ESG structure and organization, it really relies on trust, right? You need to make sure that the outputs that you generate, that you put out to the market, are super accurate, super verifiable, because that is basically, that is ultimately the trust that your customers, that your suppliers, that your investors put into you. And so you need to make sure that it works really, really well. And that's really where we come in. And what we've seen is by taking a more sort of domain specialized approach to building these AI systems, you can get them to be orders of magnitude better at being able to provide really reliable answers than if you were to just plug in, a ChatGPT or Copilot model out of the box. If we go into that in a bit more detail, Finn, if we move one forward, I think it's ultimately not just also about the actual, the outputs themselves, but it's also a lot of other areas where you need to get really domain specific to be able to help a company, for example, do a CDP disclosure, right? One is really around, okay, I have my set of data, I want to answer a set of questions, and I want to get really accurate answers. That's one area where we spend a lot of time. But there's also other areas, right? I think anybody that's familiar with the CDP questionnaire also has seen that there's a lot of conditional logic built in, right? A lot of questions connect to other questions that connect to other questions that connect to other questions. And being able to answer question 7.5.6 of the questionnaire oftentimes relies on what you answered prior to that as well. And so another area where we spend a lot of time on is making sure that that conditional logic is built into the underlying understanding of the model, so that it's not answering questions in isolation, but it's answering the questions within the context of the questionnaire as a whole, but also within the context of you and your industry and your organization. There's also areas around, for example, providing very, very tailored and specific source references, right? Making sure that there's low hallucination risk. Another area which that is important to, for example, CDP specifically, is also a lot of the questions require you to answer them in sort of complex table outputs structures. It's very difficult to do that in ChatGPT, right? To be able to say, okay, I need to answer this question that has a very complex table where I need to provide all of my scope emissions across my company and plus my supply chain base, and I need to provide it in a specific structure that is specific to CDP. That's another area that we've also built into the underlying architecture, is to be able to answer the questions, but answer them in the structure that CDP really expects. And so there's a whole number of other reasons we can go into in more detail, or I'm happy to follow up with anybody. But getting really domain specialized here is critically important. And then if we move more into Briink for CDP specifically, we touched on it already a little bit, but at Briink, we're really working very closely with the CDP team to really, make sure that the AI models that we built, that they really understand the underlying intent behind the questions that are being asked, that they understand what guidance needs to be incorporated into the underlying methodology of the questionnaire, that the models understand also how different answers will be scored or not scored. And so that's really where we are, where we've been working closely with them to build that into the underlying architecture. I think ultimately, if what we're building is, and what we have built is a platform that helps you to really do sort of end-to-end CDP work within the Briink platform. So be able to kind of collaborate within your team, to be able to use the most recent questionnaire for 2026, to be able to have the guidance built in, to have the scoring methodology built in, and allows you to really be able to sort of seamlessly collaborate within your team, and then be able to submit the data in a much faster and much more enjoyable and efficient way than if you were to try to do so manually. And I think that's really where Briink provides a lot of value, and it's also where we work very closely with the Forvis Mazars team to be able to kind of bring that technology, but also bring that technology combined with experts to really make it so that, one, you can do this work much more seamlessly, but also that you can ensure that you get a really good outcome after you submit to CDP. I think final things to mention, I think we focus a lot on the AI side of things, but also around collaboration. We're really excited about a lot of the work that we've been doing around helping companies also with pre-scoring. And also, we've been also working a lot with being able to pull in, answers that have been answered before by your organization, to make sure that the models also understand, how you've been able to answer these questions before, and make sure that as you push forward into 2026, that's also taken into account in your submission. I think just to note, we don't have to go into that much detail today, but at Briink, we take security super. It's a core part of our value proposition. We know that a lot of companies, that they don't want to just use, for example, their annual reports or public sustainability reports, but oftentimes also, internal data and documentation to be able to do this work. And so, security is sort of an enterprise grade core component of what Briink does. We're fully SOC 2 Type 2 compliant, fully GDPR aligned. We never train on any of our clients' data, and we're consistently making sure that everything is sort of really robust, really secure, and meets the highest standards of model security and data privacy. Over to you, Finn.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Yes, and basically this whole setup to us sounds very intriguing because it takes out a lot of, well, the monkey work we were doing, copy and pasting through different documents, and going deeper and deeper into really complex methodology of CDP, and basically spending most of our time as advisors just explaining things to our client, and not so much. Thinking with them together about the right or the key questions that improve a CDP score. So that's why we build a process around the tool Thomas introduced to you just now, and I'm just going to go through those 6 steps. The first thing is that we make sure we understand where you're at, because each company's CDP journey is very individual. The ambition level is very different. People are under different stress to perform there. You have a very different amount of internal stakeholders involved. Sometimes it's a small team, as Thomas mentioned, but often data needs to be collected from a lot of different actors within the company. You might have a lot of experience and colleagues that are experienced with a certain mode of work. That's obviously something that shouldn't be thrown overboard, but should be built upon. And also the types of internal capacities you have to invest into CDP process might differ. So the first step we do is we're going to sit down with you and talk to you through your specific needs, and then figure out, or in collaboration with you, a mode of work that includes Briink, includes our expert guidance, to make sure that the process is as efficiently and as well as output oriented as possible. This, by the way, is usually either done in a short kickoff phase or before we even start collaborating, so you don't have to worry about a long intro process here. Then, as Tom's already alluded to, the first thing is a document collection. So we have to define the documents, the information the tool will use to answer the CDP questionnaire. Oh, there. This obviously most handily will be your previous questionnaire or the previous answers, so to build upon that knowledge that is already there, but also your most recent reports, Excel sheets that include your carbon accounting and your energy data or waste or water data in detail, or whatever process descriptions or outputs you might get from your energy provider or what else. Also, websites are possible. So we throw everything in there. We guide you through that process either through information request lists, as you see here on the right, or through small workshops with the relevant stakeholders to make sure that they know what to provide. After that is done, basically we push the button to make sure that the whole questionnaire is answered. Some notes to that: all of that will happen in a company-specific workspace. So your documents will lie there, and the questionnaire that is tailored to your needs, so your sector, your company size, will also be there. That ensures that only the people who are working with you on the project have access to it, and we can, run different rounds there. As I said, push the button, and everything is populated with answers from the Briink AI. If the AI finds information, that is. What surprised me the first time around was how well the questions and answer possibilities are mirrored. That can also be seen here in the When you go on to question level, so you really have all the tick box possibilities. You have the tables, you have everything there, and you can, after everything's pre-populated, you can just go in manually, click into a text felt, and start writing there. That changes the whole thing, from the whole answer from an AI generated answer to a human answered answer. Um, One thing you can see here is you at any time have the possibility to click on any given answer and see where the information came from. So there will be a pop-up and which guides you to the document where the answer, the information came from. So this helps us verifying the information, but also you if you go through it after that. Maybe let me backtrack 1 second, because what we're going to do is in that step is we pre-populate but also verify. So everything is done with AI, and then we come in as rating and climate experts at Forvis Mazars and check all the answers if they are at a quality that would be sufficient to disclose from our perspective, or until we have a point where we say, okay, we need to discuss that with you. This can also be tracked here with the different status throughout the process. And maybe let me give you some example what could happen, or why that step is relevant from our end. Because even though something runs, you might end up with an answer field that looks like that, just zeros, because the requested information was not directly in the documents provided. In this case, it's not that the information wasn't there; it was never calculated. As you might know, some of those calculations you only do once a year, and you only do it for CDP. So these are the things where we know what we are doing. We have experts at our hand who have experience with CDP, but also are deep experts at climate and environmental stuff, supply chain issues, and governance and strategy issues that will come in and talk you through discussion points where we might need to, generate some new answers, or give you an expert opinion. One other example is, as much as I like the AI scoring feature, at the end of the day, it's still a CDP scoring feature. So it will be as complex as it is. So explaining to your colleagues what the different categories, disclosure, awareness, management means, that's things you can do, but it's usually smoother if you don't. But nonetheless, we can, from this is a screenshot from the AI, from the Briink generated AI scoring of a question, that will give you transparency on where you are at right now with this question. So there's still room for improvement, but you definitely need some CDP experience to read out what the potential actions are here, and if these are actions you can actually do within this reporting year, or if this is something to park and work on after the CDP process. And the next step, after we have done that, we worked through that, verified everything, and prepared the gaps you should have a close look into. We're gonna invite you to come in onto the working space. We can and basically take every one of your colleagues with you who you want to have there. So you can assign your colleagues to answer certain things, to evaluate certain questions. And also you have the possibility to assign subscribers. So those people don't need to answer that, but they can access it. So you have really control over who you want to invite for what. So depending on how many people you have in your team, or how many people in your company are contributing, you can really tailor who you want to have along for the ride. And two features which you have along the way are, on the one hand, you have here the explanations of the Briink AI that tell you why they selected what they selected and where they see gaps. So this is something that is really helpful for us, but obviously you also can use and make your opinion of what measures should happen here. And at any given time, you can press the AI scoring button, and this will score the question as it currently is in the Briink platform. So once you once it has been AI populated, you can run it. You can see where we're at, and then you say, okay, we want to close some gaps here. We can work into it manually, and then we can press the scoring button again and see if the changes have improved something and where we're scoring now. So it really gives us the opportunity to track live where we are at and gives us a good idea of improvements basically throughout this 3-month period of working through CDP. And finally, after we have worked through everything and are happy with the current state of scoring, there is this very handy feature where I was very happy about, that is this lovely button that is submit to CDP. So basically, all the work you've done inside the Briink tool, you can forward or push over to your CDP portal. And obviously from there, we might do a last quality check and then hand it in or submit it. But this really takes a lot of work that is not necessary out of the whole equation. So basically, all the work you do in the Briink tool, you can transfer directly into the CDP platform, really making the whole process much more efficient. Obviously, if you have a working mode that doesn't necessarily need that or isn't compatible with that, you still have the possibility to download or export all the answers and also the AI scoring into an Excel mode and work outside of the tool, but then you will have in the end the copy and paste game into your CDP platform. As mentioned, we can help you either way, but we strongly suggest that it's helpful in terms of having the most efficient process possible to work inside the tool. Well, and after handing in, which could be faster than before, but also could take until mid-September, basically the work in Briink stops for the moment, but we at Forvis Mazars then happily will provide you with an overview of where you're at. Basically, put all the knowledge we generated through that reporting or the engagement period together, give you an app gap overview, a scoring overview, and if you want, also an improvement roadmap. Basically giving you an action plan to the improvements that you might need, because depending on where you're at, you might have to focus on different things. Let it be the carbon accounting or the risk process or some other processes you might have. So we help you then translating all the work you've done here into ways that also your colleagues outside of the CDP universe might understand. So this is basically one cycle with us through CDP in 2026, and we would be really happy to help you in making sure to make this year the most efficient way to work through CDP. But with that in mind, let's remind ourselves what is in front of us this year. So I don't know if you already shared some thoughts towards this season of CDP, but just so you know, there are less changes than has been in some previous years. Nonetheless, there are a couple of new questions in the climate change sphere, especially with relations to CO2 removal and storage, but also land sector activities. Then not necessarily relevant for the scoring, but nonetheless interesting for the direction CDP is taking right now. There are two new voluntary topics, oceans and plastics, that could be engaged with, but as I said, will not go towards the scoring and are voluntary. And there are the usual sort of revised questions with additional guidance, slight changes due to alignment reasons. So for takeaway, a couple of new questions, but no major revamps this year. The season will start in 4 weeks. Well, the engagement window in your CDP platform will start in the week of the 15th of June and will end 3 months later in mid-September. Yes, and Thomas and I would be happy to help you in getting that out of the way this year. That's pretty much it for what we have brought with us. We now have still a couple of minutes left for questions, if there are any. Let me check. One question was regarding the this one slide. Here. So why is one thing rejected here? This is I think quite a handy feature because you can also showcase to your colleagues who you're working with that you're not in the opinion that this answer is correct or needs some working. So you have this possibility to switch it into the mode pending review, verified or rejected. Obviously, the rejected ones you're gonna work through a little bit later.
Maybe wanted to add one last maybe comment from my side. I think when I think about, or a lot of the companies that we've been working with in terms of working with AI, working on CDP, it's also like, it is one of the most complex questionnaires out there. It's also one that's coming up very soon. And I think it's also, if you are interested in kind of investing into digitalizing your ESG processes, you're interested in investing in AI, I think it's a really good place to kind of invest your time, because I think if you can really figure out, okay, how to use this effectively to do CDP, you'll also be able to use it very effectively throughout your other ratings processes, throughout your other questionnaire workflows, because it really does allow you to kind of start to build out that familiarity with this type of technology. And I think working together with Forvis Mazars, I think it'll also help you to really create sort of a roadmap towards how do I actually transform the way that I do ESG work more broadly. So I think maybe a lasting note from my side is I think it's a complex questionnaire. It's an important questionnaire. And I think this technology really allows you to be able to kind of get the best of both worlds, right? Be able to get the benefits of reporting to CDP, but also without all the heavy downsides. So that would be a lasting note from my side is, take the plunge or take the leap.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe to quickly add on that, I have worked together with several companies, big companies that have their basically winning team for ESG ratings, but they are always quite resource intensive. You had to do a lot of work every time around. So trying to think about how to use those growing and existing tools, and Briink is really one where you can, as you heard, in terms of data security, but also in terms of understanding the references, where you can really start building your processes around that. And kind of like find the efficiency levers that frees up time for you to focus on other things, maybe communicate with the right people to push the next relevant thing over. Yes. So yeah, I think we are out of time. Thank you very much for your time, for joining us here this afternoon or morning, wherever you are. And thank you, Thomas, for this. And feel free to reach out anytime to the both of us if you have any questions.
Thanks a lot, everybody. And yeah, if there's any other questions, just also feel free to reach out and to Finn or I, and we'll be happy to follow up.
Yes. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.